All right. Welcome back, everyone. I hope you enjoyed our GIS day so far. I know I've been learning a lot from our speakers on the Track A session, and I've heard great things about our Track B and look forward to watching it after the event. So be sure to check back in on our GIS Day webpage in the coming weeks. This will be the last session for today's event. For this year, we've planned a panel discussion focused on careers in GIS. We have invited 7 panelists to share their experiences and advice to those who are interested in entering into this exciting GIS field. Since the panelists were the speakers and moderators of today's events, let me skip introducing them individually. But if you would like to learn more about their backgrounds, we have a brief bio on each of our speakers and moderators that participated in today's events, which can be found on our GIS Day webpage. And during this Q&A session, please feel free to type in your questions in the chat. And we have a few questions we've prepared and gathered. And so if you do have any questions, we'll ask the panelists at the end of the session. If you have a question specific for one of the panelists, please just in the chat just say, for Zach or for Yoko or whoever you want the question addressed to. So with that, let's go ahead and start with the first question. So if my speakers and my panelists would turn on their cameras, please. So for our first question, we have this one for Yoko Myers. The question is, what initially sparked your interest in GIS and led you to pursue it as a career?
Okay, so my journey to GIS world began when I was in graduate program. When I was in the Master of Public Policy program at UCLA, we learned many techniques and methodologies to analyze the effectiveness of new policies. Among various techniques, statistical analysis was required, so I had to take many statistics-related courses. And the GIS courses were also offered as electives as a valuable analytical tool. So I took Intro to GIS course. So this was my first encounter or exposure to GIS. So what sparked my interest? It was the power of visualization. In contrast to the statistics, which primarily relies on the numbers and requires a foundational knowledge to understand what the number means, t-scores and whatnot, GIS was so effective in conveying the compelling stories to audience. So in one of my coursework projects, we were tasked to assisting a real-world client in solving their issues. So our client, who was a school administrator, was working on a school safety initiative. I vividly remember struggling to convey our analysis result using the statistical method. However, when I switched to using a map to illustrate the school violence on campus, it just made a 180-degree difference in their engagement. I was just amazed by the persuasive power of visualization. I learned how easy it was to convey complex information and tell a compelling story through GIS. It may be just like going back to the Todd's speech at the beginning. Of course, not everything is that easy, but at least visualization made me a little easier than just only showing the numbers. And I have another example. While I was working as a GIS analyst for another county, I received a request from Social Services Department. They wanted to understand how many of their clients reside outside of the county boundaries. As the first step, I just simply geocoded the addresses and simply put the dots on the map overlaid with the county boundaries. When I showed this super simple, quick map to the requester, I saw their jaw dropped. Actually, quite a few dots were outside of the county boundaries. So they looked at the tabular data and they knew that some zip codes or some city names appeared to belong to the neighboring counties. But it was only until when the dots were visually mapped that they comprehended the true magnitude of the issue. So these were 2 experiences along with similar encounters engrossed me in GIS. I'm not discounting the value of data science or statistics. actually there is a field called spatial data science, which is actually quite fascinating area. Regardless, for me myself, I just came to realize that I can make a meaningful impact on society when I do GIS. So that's why I'm here.
Thank you, Yoko. For our next question, this one will be for Danny. Um, in what ways have you seen the field of GIS evolve since you started your career? And what trends do you see shaping its future?
Thanks, Wade. I have to follow Yoko. She did such a good job.
You did.
um, so a little bit about my background, right? I don't come from the GIS professional side, right? I come from the kind of the applied side, starting, with the Parks Conservancy, 13 years in the field as a biological monitor, and a restoration technician, and then moving into a project management role in supporting land managing agencies in Marin, San Francisco, and Sonoma counties. And so for me, GIS was kind of always on the application and applied side, and less on the development side. But I think from my perspective, just from 13 years ago, my experience was that there was one handheld Trimble device for our entire organization. We shared it with the National Park Service at the Golden Gate National Recreation Area. It was very expensive. You had to check it out. It was very, closely guarded technology, and, required training in order to be able to check it out. And I just think that if you kind of flash forward today to how easy it is to collect GIS on, any mobile device, on any number of applications available in the Google Store, the Apple Store. It's really amazing how much data can be generated by non-technical GIS professionals, and I feel like that is both a wonderful opportunity and a big challenge for those of us that manage spatial data. I think that the opportunity clear, as it was discussed today, is in the democratization of GIS data, the increase in access, and kind of the increasing requirement for GIS professionals to act as data translators, to have to be able to, people don't need to understand the fundamentals of GIS to be able to generate data. And I think on balance, that's a good thing. But I think that it then falls to us, to be translators of that data, to teach good data management practices, to again and again underscore the importance of metadata and standardization, right? All of the things that that I think like sort of form the backbone of good GIS practice. Like that sort of like that responsibility is now kind of doubled or tripled or exponentially increased for those of us that are on the back end, both to act as translators, as Todd mentioned in the keynote address, which I thought was really well said, but also to kind of act as data stewards, right, in a way that in an environment where data creation is much more open. So I think that's the biggest change, and probably moving forward, I see those trends continuing, right? Hopefully, there will be, new tools, maybe AI and maybe other tools that can help us, with that data standardization and making sure that the metadata and other aspects of good data management are sort of reinforced or maybe built into some of these collection applications and platforms. But I don't see that going away. I see us continuing to need to be good data stewards and keepers of the data and enforcing standards and best practices. And I really don't see, like, at any time not more data not being generated. Data generation is going to continue to be easier and easier, and I think that's a good thing. But again, I think that our role as translators is going to have to continue to be reinforced and supported. And I guess the last thing I'll say on that is that I find myself often in a unique role of understanding a lot of the back end of GIS and how complex spatial data sets come together, and sort of what the science and practices behind development of those data sets, but I'm not a GIS professional, so I often find myself in the role of kind of playing that translator role to users. And I think that we should consider that more as a formal role in our GIS work environments, right? That staffing teams with maybe someone that isn't as focused on the back end data management and data stewardship and application development side, but really is focused on the users and maybe doesn't have a GIS background, but has the ability to take those complex kind of concepts and translate them to users. That's a different skill. Some GIS folks might maybe have that skill because they're awesome and multi-talented, but some folks might not be comfortable in that role. And I increasingly see it as a collateral duty, and I'd like to see it be recognized as a really good role and a separate skill set that teams should maybe recruit for. So I'll end there.
Great, thank you. For our third question, this will be to you, Jason. Can you share an example of a real-world project where GIS played a crucial role in decision-making or problem-solving?
Yeah, definitely, I can do that. I think over my career, I've been with the company for 25 years now, so there's been a lot of exciting projects over that time. And, I was just trying to figure out which one I should talk about. There's all kinds of them that come to mind. I mean, we've worked on flood risk mitigation, we've worked on fire risk mitigation, habitat analysis, invasive species modeling, broadband accessibility, irrigated lands mapping, and even smart city and digital twin type of solutions, right? So there's a lot of variety of things to kind of think about when that question is being asked. And so it's interesting because I decided to take a little bit lighter note today in terms of the one I would focus on. We got requested many years ago to come talk about Sanborn's technology from a remote sensing perspective and how that could be used within a company called InBev. If you're not familiar with who InBev is, that's the parent company of Budweiser, Anheuser-Busch, as well as many other beer makers across the world. They're the largest beer manufacturer in the world, right? And so this is a pretty big company. And what's kind of interesting about their company is they are the biggest consumer of barley. Surprise, right? Because they make beer, right? And so the discussion that we started having with them is they not only consume the most barley, but they also work with partners as well as their own farmers, and they grow on all continents except for Antarctica. And so you can imagine the challenge that they're faced with because they have different climates, different soil types, all kinds of different variations of a product that they're trying to produce to make a consistent product. And so this is actually up, I'm in Colorado Springs, this is up in Fort Collins at the Budweiser brewery up there. They actually created a barley plot there where they had multiple different varieties of barley that they were growing, and they were doing essentially different prescriptive analysis on that crop. So this really gets to precision farming is what it's about. And what they asked us to do is can we look at our technology, primarily remote sensing, and help them understand early stress signs within the barley. And so this was pretty interesting because it incorporated elevation data, DSMs, DEMs, as well as different vegetation typing, looking at stressing, looking at other components associated with the vegetation itself. And we actually deployed, because it was a fairly small land type, we actually deployed a UAS. At that time, it was a fairly early adoption of UAS. And so the different technologies that were used really to essentially provide feedback and information to InBev in association with what they need to consider for different barley types in these different regions. And as the climate is changing, it's also impacting them in terms of what they're using. And so, it's a fun one to talk about because it's one of the first times, and I think the only time in my career I actually could talk about the fact that the work we were doing actually was helping make better beer, right? And most of the time we're focused on much more serious, impactful things. But, I thought it was a fun one to talk about. It was a really cool experience. I was not only there from a sales and business development standpoint, but I helped execute the acquisition, met with the team there. One of the fun notes is the person, their project manager I worked with, he brought us a whole bunch of Budweiser collateral. The only thing he didn't bring was beer, which was unfortunate. I was like, what the heck? And he said he's not allowed to, I guess. But at the end of the day, that was a really fun project to work on. And, that's what's, I think, been interesting over my time at the company is, the projects that you remember aren't necessarily the largest projects. they tend to be the ones that are kind of the most fun that you work on, as well as the people, right? That's the one thing that I would say is, that's what when this question was presented to me, I was like thinking about it. And what always came to light was the people I was working with and not as much about the exact technology. And so there's always that thing to think about, is that when you think about careers in GIS, it's always about the technology, but the people in this industry are awesome. I think what Danny was just talking about in terms of different varieties of people that kind of connect the dots of how this science can be used is really important. And so, it's been great. And that project was a really fun one to work on. So I don't want you guys to think I'm an alcoholic, because I talked about beer in my previous presentation as well, right? So I actually don't drink that much, but at the end of the day, all of us, every once in a while have a beer, which is kind of cool. So
Thank you, Jason.
yeah.
For our fourth question, this will be to Sampa. So the question is, what skills and qualities do you believe are essential for a successful career in GIS?
Thanks, Zoid. Hi, everyone. This is Sampa. I'm honored to be here with you today, and I'm senior GIS analyst in our Santa Clara County GIS group, and I'm here almost 16 years. And this job is my passion. It's not my job. I really like to do anything related to GIS. From my middle school to now, I always want to be a geographer. So today, my role is as a GIS analyst. I have been fortunate, done numerous projects in here, and I actively engaged now 2 exciting projects, the LiDAR and the Parcel Fabric project, where I'm learning everything. So what is the skills and quality are essential in successful career in GIS? There is a few things, because GIS is really broad, and which field you want to grow. But few things really need to know, like understanding the data. As a GIS professional, must you have a deep understanding the spatial data. Because without data, you cannot, GIS is mainly, everything is the data related. And you need to have the data analytics skills, and also the quality control, maintenance, and the metadata, how to create. That's the main part of the data. And also nowadays, like what Zach, Matt, everyone is telling, AI project, and you need to have little bit the programming skill. And because you need to have some kind of custom solution for the GIS. And Python is the really popular now, and also people are using the R for the analytic purpose. And with that, you need to have some kind of knowledge, the web service, how to create, and also the web service with the HTML, CSS, JavaScript, that is the powerful for the integrations. And also the third one is definitely database management, which is if you are a really big department, you have to have the enterprise database, and where you need to have some kind of the database management knowledge, where people are now using lots of SQL query and everything for the manipulation data and other stuff. And also the project management, because we are lots of things is the customer related, and you have to have a project management skill little bit, and also lots of strong communication and the writing skill. Top of that, this is kind of the main in general, but what from my experience, I think that you have to have the multitasking, and also the attention to details, customer service. And one thing from my experience is the willing to learn the new things every day. Every day also I'm learning new things, research and learning. And remember one thing that is my suggestion, continuous skill development, that is the key thriving. Try to find the training opportunities and gather the feedback and identify areas where you can improve and your growth. And this journey as the GI is very exciting and ever evolving one. And I'm thrilled to be part in the GIS industries. I am really enjoying in my everyday in my Santa Clara County what I'm doing. So these are my suggestions for all the skills and knowledge. Thank you.
Thank you, Sampa. For our next question, this is for Todd. What has your experience been as a GIS director? How does it differ from your time as a GIS analyst or when you were a GIS data scientist?
Like I've told people before, when you become a GIS director, you don't do GIS anymore. You just it's like it's a more you're definitely management level, and so you have to deal with management level things. So you're dealing with HR issues, you're dealing with strategy, you're dealing with procurement, so dealing with vendor contracts and things of that nature. So some people may think it's like, oh, do you ever get time to make a map or write code or build an application or something like that? And not really, not anymore. And and you say it's like, well, do you miss it? And it's like a little bit. It's like it depends on the situation where you may say it's like, well, look, I want to jump in there and help out, and you still can. It's just a matter of you have other responsibilities that may take priority, that you have staff members to take care of it for you. It's like look, we'll make the map. It's like you go to the executive meeting. Like, okay, fine. But it's not to say it's necessarily a bad thing in any regard. And so, but I do make time to keep my skills up, so to speak. It's like I know where I came from, so it's like to do analysis or do make a map or build an application or deal with data issues and things like that. But I've told people I usually see myself as the conductor of an orchestra, where the first chair violinist knows how to play that violin better than I do, but I know when they should come in the musical number. So it's like so if I'm pointing at them, or if they need to take the tempo up or take the tempo down, that's where I'm the one sort of being the guiding light in that way. And so, but it is you're working as a team, and when you're working as a team, it's like usually you need leadership in some way. And so it's like I provide for that. But so it is different, to say the least. It's like, but you need to be prepared for it too, because some people are like, oh yeah, it's like I'm a GIS manager or director or something like that. It's like, oh, this is gonna be great, and then you get into it, and then you're sitting there looking at vendor contracts all day. It's like, I'm not looking at vendor contracts all day. It's like, well, that's what you do. So it's like, yeah, you take it comes with the territory.
Great, thank you, Todd. So our next question is for Matthew. What do you find the most rewarding about working in the GIS field?
Yeah, that's a great question. Through my career so far, like I've seen GIS change a lot. GIS has changed a lot in the last, 10 to 20 years. I've been at Esri for 7 years, and I've seen a lot of growth in Esri just as a company, but also just in general, the amount of products that we have to support. So as a solution engineer team lead, I went from supporting a couple products to supporting a variety of products, because within state and local government that I support, our customers use almost every product, if not most of the products. So it's rewarding because you're always on your toes, always trying to learn the next, release or the next, product that we've started to build based off of our customers to, ask and demand, or, bugs and fixes that we have within our core products like ArcGIS Pro and ArcGIS Align and ArcGIS Enterprise. So it's always interesting. It's always, dynamic. When I go to UC every year, I kind of get to see the full picture of everything outside of my purview, because, we work with, folks on the phone, and, most of the, all the states that I support, which is California, Nevada, and Hawaii. But when we get to go to UC and see this like larger picture of GIS, I also get to learn more about what GIS is doing outside of my world and into this greater universe that keeps expanding. And GIS is, something that expands a lot of different job titles. Some of the ones that, somebody brought up in the chat, like there's GIS in a lot of different roles, not just GIS specific professional roles. So it's very fun expanding. But if I wanted to boil it down to like, what's the most rewarding part of GIS, at least for me, is being able to work with a lot of talented individuals in this industry, especially the customers that I do have, and always being able to like help them when they call me up and say, hey, I have a problem, can you help me? And I think that's my favorite part, is just problem solving and troubleshooting with people and working collaboratively with people and using GIS to solve problems. I can't tell you how many calls I've had in the last couple weeks that I'm helping people solve problems with GIS. We're working together and coming up with new ideas to use the technology. And that's the most rewarding part, is just working with people day to day.
Great, thank you so much. So our next question is for Zach, but there is a question in the chat that is similar to yours, so I'll kind of bundle those two. So for Rocio, your question, so we do have a question. Does anyone recommend any GIS courses that are available online that are for people who are not currently students? And then the next question I want to ask Zach is, what advice would you give to students or professionals who are considering a career in GIS?
Thanks. Yeah, so, GIS is, I think what I love most about GIS is that it can be used in so many different industries. And there's different ways that you can approach GIS as a professional. You can go all in as a, full-blown GIS analyst or GIS data scientist, and that's what you do. Or you can use GIS, kind of as Danny explained, and, maybe GIS is a tool that you use to enhance your work, but you're not, a GIS analyst 24/7. So what I would suggest is, if you are a student, to take courses in other fields that interest you and think about how, GIS might be useful in those fields. I also would highly recommend internships and research projects with professors. An internship I had in local government when I was in college was really what got me into the public sector and made me realize that this is, where I could see myself as a professional. More and more important nowadays, I feel like, is, making sure that you are an adept coder, programmer, even if it's, basic introductory courses to programming. There's so many use cases for programming nowadays in GIS, and it's only going to benefit you to have those skills. And then I'd suggest connecting with people on LinkedIn, finding professionals on LinkedIn that are maybe in a field that you're interested in, and reach out to them. A lot of GIS professionals and, professionals in other fields are happy to talk to folks who are interested to learn more about their profession. You can ask for an informational interview, to, ask questions about how they got where they are. And then to answer the additional question about courses for non-students, there's so many resources out there. There's this term called MOOCs, MOOC, Massive Online. I always forget what it means. I'm not sure if anyone else remembers, but they're basically free courses that you can take without being a registered student at an institution. So Esri actually has a whole library of these MOOCs. And what's great about the Esri ones is they let you use their software for free while you're taking the course. So oftentimes these are like 4 or 6 week courses, and you get to use the software for free during that time. There's also a lot of great online courses for free at institutions like Penn State, MIT, and you can register as a non-student and, be in an online class with other people learning about GIS. So there's a lot of resources out there, and definitely encourage everyone to seek those out.
Great, thank you, Zach, and also thank you, Matt, for sending the link into the chat there. So if anyone is interested in the MOOCs, there is a link in there. And also, I think someone also told us what the acronym stands for. So thank you so much, Zach. For our next question, this one will be directed towards you, Yoko. So we kind of have 2 questions that I feel are kind of similar. So the first one is, do any of your organizations provide on-the-job training? If so, are they hiring GIS analysts? I guess that one can be kind of open to the panel. But the question I wanted to direct to you, Yoko, is from Taha. I hope that I'm saying that right. I feel like GIS professionals aren't valued as much as those in other fields. If you advertise yourself as a data analyst, web developer, or a programmer, organizations tend to value you highly. However, when your title includes GIS, such as GIS analyst, GIS developer, or geospatial programmer, the market value significantly decreases, even though you may have similar responsibilities as a regular developer. Have any of you experienced this? If so, how did you overcome it?
Yeah, so I take this question. Well, when I was in a junior GIS analyst, actually, I was not classified as a GIS analyst. There was no such classification as a GIS analyst in the organization. I was actually web application developer. And then I'm not the web application developer, but I do something and create a GIS application. So they just called me as a application developer. So if the organization have the kind of functional GIS role, then yet they don't have the classification, but you're doing it, and you can, to me, like you can probably advertise you as like for example, you said a web developer, programmer, since you can do it. I would just go with that, go with the flow. But I'm sure there will be a chance that the organization will recognize, okay, this is a special area. Let's call it the GIS application developer or GIS analyst. Then that's a time you have a chance to move it to that classification. And for me, there was a time that that I had to kind of change the classification. Then you just have to go through it. But now I'm just thinking back as my current role, and it's my job to promote GIS analysts or GIS other kind of type of, however your organization call, something related to GIS. It's my job to promote that the importance of the functions in the organization. It's not only within the organization. I guess some people are active in more like a nonprofit organization, professional organization, to kind of increase awareness of GIS. So I guess that's something like it's coming and it's active. So I would like you to just keep an eye on that, the movement, I should say. And then just, keep your passion in GIS. You may not have the GIS analyst, GIS programmer title, but if you can do it, and that would be great. So that's my maybe 2 cents.
Thank you. Jason, I see you raised your hand. Did you want to add in on this question here?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I kind of second what was being said there. I mean, I would say that over the course of the last 5 years, we have started to see a transition where people with high-end development skills that also have the GIS analytical skills are starting to kind of catch up with the IT or the development skills that don't have the GIS. And it's because they're pretty unique requirements, right? We have quite a few staff members and what I would call labor descriptions that have those requirements in it that are very difficult to find because of that supply and demand in the workforce. You're starting to see that valuation in terms of the pay scale, I think, start to match a traditional developer type of role. I know it's probably still not quite there, but based upon our experience, it's almost more rare to find the developer skill that also has the GIS skills than just the developer itself. And so that is truly starting to equal the playing field. And at probably some point is going to start going in the opposite direction of what you're seeing now. So I just kind of wanted to mention that because that's, we definitely saw that, but we're seeing a change in terms of the ideology. The biggest important, I think, point to make on this is that, someone may say, hey, you need to have some development skills, but if the work requirement definitely requires a certain level of chops on the development side, then that's when you know that the pay scale is going to be more, right? If it just has oh yeah, you might have to do some programming, something in it, then maybe it's not really what that position is about. So it really comes down to what that customer is in need of. In some cases, it's our own internal need or it's our client's need in terms of that requirement. So.
Thank you, Yoko. Thank you, Jason. So it looks like we have someone in the audience who has their hand raised. It looks like Jack Gaskins. I'm going to allow you to talk if you're ready to ask your question. you just unmute and you can ask the question. Okay. Looks like you may be having, we can't hear you, so I don't know if maybe there's some technical difficulties. If you want to just type your question into the chat, we can ask it for you. So moving on to the next question. Let's see. Okay, we have a question here. Will the county, so I guess this would be towards Yoko and Sampa, myself. Will the county have a way to provide the geo data for a house, office, or intersection? The use case is we use Google Info, which lacks government approval. But if we have a county site providing these details, we can use this as a government approved info.
I can take that question. Yes, we do have a maps.scc.gov.org.
I
Is
think
that the
someone,
correct one?
yeah, I think that's correct.
You already
think
gave
some-
that one, yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
So that has the information. These are the data that's available for the use, and it does have the annual property data, the parcel map, and intersections, or we call it the road centerline data set. And not sure when you meant by the offices, but the Santa Clara County's facilities, they are available as well. And you are more than welcome to kind of explore that website.
Great, and I think that was put in the chat as well. Great, okay, so we have a couple more questions, it looks like. So I guess this one is open to any of the panelists. How can someone enter the GIS field? Is there a degree required? If so, which type of degrees? Are there any certification courses someone pursue if they don't have the right kind of degree? So I know Zach kind of answered that question a little bit, but if anyone had any additional comments or input on that. Okay, go ahead, Jason.
I would say, I mean, in all of our job descriptions, there's either a level of experience or degree that's required, right? And so experience can be exchanged for the degree, but that means you have to have more experience. And we do have some positions that we hire, like an intern position or something of that nature, that would not require that degree, but in general, the degree is needed. Most of the time we are looking for something in geography or GIS, but it can be planning, it could be, you know, some other type of, you know, maybe it's in IT side of things. We do have a range of positions as well. They're not all GIS. I mean, we have people that are flying airplanes, for example, drone pilots. Then there's the certifications, right? We pay extra for the certifications. We'll pay bonuses for people to get certifications, but the certifications typically are not required to get the job. They just are essentially icing on the cake, is what I would say. So.
Great. All right. We have another question, kind of again, same, you know, I guess this is careers in GIS, right? So kind of that theme here. So we have another one is, what sort of master's programs would you recommend for someone interested in data analytics, program management, in association with GIS? And then I guess they have a comment as, you know, some colleges don't offer a GIS program. So is there enough crossover between a master's in urban planning, business analytics, or data science within GIS?
Zach, sorry, wait, I'm just giving one link for the Penn State one. They have so kind of the things, and people can go
okay.
and check that one. Yeah.
Oh, perfect. Thank you, Sampo. So for CL in the chat, looks like Sampa's posted a link there. So great.
Wait, I can answer that a little bit too.
Sure, go ahead.
At least in my opinion, the best thing you can do if you do have, say you take a degree program, an undergraduate degree program in GIS or geography or something like that, the best thing you can do for graduate work is to not study geography or GIS and focus on a different subject, whatever it may be. It could be business, epidemiology, it could be, you know, environmental studies, it could be something else. Only because a lot of the jobs coming up in GIS, it's like the GIS professional has a very, you know, sort of, you know, static group of people. It's like there's growth, but it's not so huge that, you know, it's like, oh, we'll be bringing everyone into the mix. However, these other industries, like I said, it's like whether you're going into the corporate world or, you know, you're going into, you know, health, or you're going into any other sort of public services, like any other sort of, you know, branch of government that may be like that, combining that with, you know, your GIS can really raise your game a lot, because now you not only have, you know, the knowledge of like how GIS works or how geography works or how spatial data works and things like that, but now you get this completely other subject matter that you can combine it with, and you put those two together and, you know, you're golden. So it's like, so I'd say it's one or the other. Say if I took an undergraduate, you know, degree in business, and it's like, all right, well, now I want to take a graduate degree in geography or GIS or something like that. But being two sides of, that's the one thing I regret in my career, is that I stuck with geography and GIS the whole way. And because it was easy to me, I'm just like, oh, do stick with what's easy. And now I sort of actually kind of regret it. It's like I wish I would have challenged myself a little bit more and sort of branched out into something that was completely foreign to me, that I was like maybe a little bit curious about, and gotten a lot more knowledge with that. But I'll leave it at that.
Thanks, Tom. Roger Gutierrez, I see you have your hand raised. Oh, it looks like he put his hand down. Never mind. Okay. And I think we have one more question in the chat. Let's see. Okay. So I think this is kind of more county related, but I'm sure you know, we can extrapolate this for, you know, our other panelists. So how openly is data and GIS services being shared between different departments within the county? So that's the first part of the question. The second part is, how do you discover new processes within county where GIS may improve the process with a department or agency within the county?
That's a very good question. I guess I can probably take that question. So question number one, how openly is the data and the GIS services being shared between different departments within the county? So you may know or you may not know, but the county of Santa Clara, we do have the GIS hub, meaning that it's just a central repository. So we do have the ownership, we define the data ownership of the for each data set. So like, for example, if you talk about the property data set, the parcel data set, the owner is, of course, it's an assessor's office. And if you talk about the zoning data, that's planning department. So they are the ownership. And then we put those data into the central database. So we clarify that who is the owner, who is the maintenance steward, and who has the right to access the data. Some data are open to public, some data are only internal to county departments, or some data are not only for the particular department. So we just classify those data set, and we have the, we call it as a GIS repository, basically a list of the data sets. So that's how we are kind of sharing. These are available to the GIS professionals who actually maintain those data sets, may not be so visible to the regular users that are only using the apps as application based. But if you are those second type of the user just using the app and you're wondering, how can I get the data? Just contact me, and then I will just keep as my action item. How do you make this information visible to the non-GIS professional as well? And question number two, how do you discover new processes within the county where GIS may improve process within the county agency, within the county? Let me just digest the question first.
Definitely.
Discover the new process. Okay, so this may be just a little bigger than just a GIS in general. If you have any questions or like some ideas of the new process that, hey, like I have this workflow, but maybe the GIS may be the one of the answers to improve my process or workflow, then we do have the idea page shovel within the county of Santa Clara. That's going to be the first step that you can probably input an ideas. That's only for the county of Santa Clara employees. I don't know if there are any other organization take a different approach, but this is how the county of Santa Clara takes.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
can I just
I see,
add
Zach,
something?
you have your hand raised. Oh, go ahead, Zach.
Yeah,
Sorry.
briefly. Yeah, and I think it applies to any organization really. As GIS professionals, we and Todd spoke about this earlier. We know how GIS works, so it's very easy to kind of have our blinders up and not think about how other people are doing work and workflows without knowing how GIS might be able to help those workflows. And so there's often this disconnect there. So I think it's kind of often up to us as GIS professionals to listen to our non-GIS colleagues and understand, what are their processes and workflows. So for example, I just started a new position in the planning department, and I'm not a planner. So my early work has really been understanding what does our department do, because then if I understand what my colleagues do, then I can think about, okay, well, how can I help improve their workflows and introduce GIS to them when they maybe didn't, think about GIS being an option to improve that workflow. So that's my suggestion there.
Thanks, Yoko. Thanks, Zach. It looks like the person who asked the question also wanted to get your input as well, Todd. Being from a different county and kind of getting your perspective there. If you want, I can reread the question for you. It is one, how openly is data and GIS services being shared between different departments within the county? And two, how do you discover new processes within county where GIS may improve the process with a department or agency within the county? So working cross-functionally.
Yeah, I'll take that first one with, data being shared across departments. We try our best. That's really the best thing you can do, and sort of keeping those lines of communication open is really what's key. The GIS at Cook County is fairly centralized, so which makes it good in that regard, because if anyone needs any sort of spatial data or mapping applications or something like that, it's usually flowing through us. Now there are other counties where it's very distributed, and so you'll have a lot of different areas working in GIS in different ways. And that's where things can sort of get left by the wayside, because if people just live in their silo, they don't communicate outside of that. With us, we're the hub on the wheel. So everything's, coming through us in one way, shape, or form. So it's very easy to at least put people in touch with each other. It's like that we'll see something that, say, our public defender is working on, and be like, hey, did you know there's something related going on in the revenue department that they may, you might be able to link up on. And that's something that's very good in that regard. With regards to like discovering new stuff, it's like, sometimes we stumble upon it, or we'll just, we'll see a presentation given by somebody and we're like this would be a GIS application. This actually happened, when was it? 8 years ago, 9 years ago, with our medical examiner's office. And the medical examiner has all basically death data regarding, what's happening in the county. And, the idea came up of just like, why isn't this in a dashboard, or why isn't this on a map, so you can see not only where is death happening, but what type of death is happening. So whether it's suicide, a homicide, a drug overdose, it's like, whatever it may be. And it's like, is there a pattern to be had there? And it's like, once again, as GIS people, we see that. It's like, that's automatic for us. But like the medical examiner, like, I never thought of it that way. And we did. And it's like, and we got huge praise for it. Because of that. So you never really know where the data lingers. But as I've said for many years, like everything has a location. Where you parked your car, where you brushed your teeth, where you had lunch today, it's like all those things have a location. And so if they have a location and it's in a database, is there a pattern to identify there? And it's like, maybe yes, maybe no. It's like, it's really dependent on the department and the situation as to whether a GIS is necessary. And I'm the weird GIS person in that way, because we'll have other departments come to us and say like, oh, I need a map. And I'll push them away. I'm like, no, you don't. It's like, this is a spreadsheet. And so it's like, not everything, but they want the map because it's a really cool visual. And they're like, oh yeah. And it's like, yeah, but it's overkill. It's like, don't over engineer the solution. It's like, this is a simple spreadsheet, black and white. It's like, and pass it along to people. So I'm one of the oddballs in that I'll sometimes push people away from using GIS just because it's too much. It's like it's like if you don't need a map, don't complicate the situation or the answer or the solution by infusing one into it just because you wanted something pretty to look at. It's like, data spreadsheets, it's like, yeah, they're not the greatest to look at, but if they're effective, then they're effective. Like, that's about it.
Great. Thank you, Todd. I don't think there's any more questions, but actually I noticed from this question is more internally, but Danny, this might be directed towards you with working with the fine scale vegetation mapping, which collaborated with different counties. I don't know if by chance you have any insights to share with how open that data was between these different counties, and if maybe these counties had different processes that they shared with each other. I don't know if maybe you have any insights or anything you want to comment on there, but if not, no worries. But
yeah, I could just offer quickly that we made it clear at the onset of our project that all of the data would be in the public domain. So, that's for a few reasons. I think there's a philosophical reason, which my mentor Cass Green would say, the data is meaningless unless we can get it in the hands of users. And so, there's a philosophical reason for making that data available in the public domain. And then there's technical reasons related to, that it's funded through public grants and public granting agencies. And so we're sort of required to make that data public because it's publicly funded. There were very few exceptions to that. Some foundational imagery data was obtained under license, for example, and so is only we're only able to use it for the specific license purpose, and it's not we don't own the data. But in the case of the data generation for the fine scale vegetation map, it was a very deliberate and intentional choice to make all of that data available in the public domain, just to increase the user base.
Great, thanks. Thank you, Danny, and thank you everyone for your answers. So I think we went over a little bit. So thank you everyone thank you the panelists for kind of going over a little bit and your patience there, and thank you everyone for who's listened and also for your questions. This was very informational and inspiring for me, and I've learned a lot today being on track A, and again, hopefully look forward to listening to the presentations on track B at a later date. So I'm just going to share my screen here and give you some additional information. So what you see over here is we have a survey link, which I will also include in the chat here. Let me grab that quick, sorry. So if you don't mind, please fill out the survey, and we'd love to hear from you. We also have the QR code, which we will leave up on the screen. And so let me send that link in the chat. And then, so the survey will also be sent to your email if you registered with us. I'd also like you to fill it out if you want to have any future, if you have any suggestions for future enhancements or, questions, feel free to, also email us. It looks like Sampa included our email in the chat. So if there are any further questions, please feel free to send an email there, or you can type it in the chat before we end today. We will be posting these presentation materials on our website together with the different questions and answers within the next 3 weeks. So keep an eye out for that. And then, so I'll leave this up here for just a second more. But I hope you've all enjoyed today's events. I know I have, and that you are also inspired by what we've learned and what we can achieve through GIS technology, and especially hearing all the passion from our different GIS panelists who, come from different backgrounds, different careers, but in the end of the day, we all are working in collaboration to kind of help, advance, transform and innovate, GIS, and to see where it's taking us in the future. So, hopefully this will help us, innovate even further. So thank you all to our presenters and to the County of Santa Clara team for their behind the scenes efforts and coordination. And I hope everyone has a great rest of their day.
Thanks, Dan.
Thank you.